Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another reading vlog. My name is Mel, and this one is one that I've had kind of as an idea for a little while and thought, heck, why not? Let's just go for it. So I've always been really interested in cults and the true crime aspect of how one gets involved in a cult and what kind of things that they can use to brainwash people and the different types. I've just always found it very interesting. I even watched, I think it was Devil in the White City not too long ago. And while that one was not great, it was still fascinating. And the fact that it was told and based on a true story is just eerie and extremely unsettling. And I realized that I have not read a lot of like mystery thrillers or horrors that have this aspect in them, and so I decided that I would try to find a bunch of different ones, read a few, and see if that is actually something that I like in my fiction. So the book that started this all off is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. She's the same author that wrote In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, and this book has been everywhere, all over BookTube recently. People have been loving it left and right, and it is based on a cult, and so this kind of sparked this whole video because I did really want to read this book. It's about a young woman and her friend who are involved in, I think it was a sex cult, and they did manage to get out, but many years later her friend has died, and so she's kind of investigating what happened to her friend and I believe probably getting sucked back into this old world that she did escape. I've heard that this one is super, super dark, and so I don't know what that says about me, but actually is kind of a buzzword for me. I do like a really dark story, a story that's willing to go there. So I'm very interested in giving this one a try, and hopefully I love it as much as everyone else does. And then I also found two others that I was definitely planning to read for this vlog. But as you will find out, there are more than two books sitting here staring at me right now. One of the first ones, these two were actually recommendations that I found from Crime by the Book over on Instagram. She did a reel with a couple of different cult books, and I found two that I was very interested in. One is a newer release, and that is Please Join Us by Catherine McKenzie. This is about a woman who is invited into this prestigious club for professional women, and she's getting all of these benefits from it. She's seeing riches, she's seeing clients, and then she gets a call one day that she needs to go cover up one of the other members' murders, and she realizes that she might have gotten herself into a little bit more than she thought she did. This one is a cult nature. It's just a little bit different than the one we talked about in The Last Housewife, and this is the one that I'm the most likely to not get to if I don't get to all four of these. It is really short, but it is the one that I'm least interested in. It's a newer release, and I've not heard anybody really talk about it, so we'll see if I get to this one. The other one is a backlist title. I think it was published in like 2015, 2016, and that is The Girl Before by Rena Olson. This one is about a young woman who is kidnapped, and she is having to kind of like relive her life, and I believe, and it says that she must question everything she thought she ever knew about her history, her family, her captors, who may in fact turn out to be her saviors. I've heard this one is pretty dark too. I wanted to include one that I've not heard talked about at all before, so excited to get to this one. And then one day I was just perusing Barnes & Noble as one does. I was actually looking for the books for the last vlog, for the horror sci-fi fantasy vlog, and I came across this little gem, Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. Now, Nick Cutter is most known for The Troop, and I've seen that one and one of his other ones based out like at sea before, but The Troop I've heard has a lot of like animal stuff in it, and so I might read it someday, but I've just kind of been avoiding it for that reason. and I didn't want to give his work a try. And so when I saw this, read the back, and realized it was a horror based on cults, I knew I had to grab it, and I knew that I had to include it in this vlog. So let me just read you the tagline, the blurb from Shauna McGuire, who wrote one of my, I won't say favorite horror, it's Into the Drowning Deep, but one of the horror that I think about the most frequently. And she says, it's a slow boil of unrelenting terror and inescapable consequences. Nick Cutter ups his game every time. Beautifully written, menace drips from every page. Very excited to read this one. It's quite long. It's got teeny tiny writing and it's over 400 pages, almost 500 pages, but I'm excited. I think this is going to be a good one, and I'm excited to be able to include a horror amongst the thrillers in this vlog. So those are the 4 that I am planning to read. We'll see if I get to all of them. I'm hopeful that I will. I had a lot of plans for this week. I was going to go pumpkin picking, and I was going to go get some apple cider. I was going to do a corn maze. We were going to do all of the things, and then the weather said, yeah, it's going to rain today, which is Sunday, and then it's going to rain Friday, Saturday, Sunday of next week. I was like, great. That's super helpful for the vlog. So if it doesn't rain and we're able to, I will include that in here for you guys. Hopefully we can at least go grab a couple of pumpkins because I've seen them everywhere and I really, really want one. But I think that's everything. I think gonna start with, I have the dust jacket. I think I'm gonna start with The Last Housewife. I hate to start with the one that I'm the most interested in, but at the same time, I want to kick this vlog off with a bang, and I have that one on audio. I'm really excited about it, and I think that'll really get the ball rolling for the rest of the week. So I'm gonna go start on that, and I will check back in with you guys later once we've either done something exciting, which with the rain is not likely, or I've read a little bit more of The Last Housewife. So I have literally just finished The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. I mean, I just hit pause on this book. And I meant to update you guys a whole heck of a lot sooner, but I didn't. I'm sorry. This one reads really, really quickly. It is not one of those books that I felt like I was slogging through or having a hard time getting through. It is not really what I would call a thriller because I was not necessarily on the edge of my seat just needing to flip those pages to know what happened, but at the same time, it was a quick and thrilling read, if that makes sense. It is slightly horror just because of the topic and the fact that Ashley Winstead really does go there, and I think that's one of the things that I've said I wanted out of this book to begin with was I heard it was dark, but I didn't want her to pull any punches. If you're going to tell this type of story, do it and go all in. To be completely honest, this was the level of dark that I would have expected from like a self-published book. You don't normally see things this explicit in trade publishing because they fear that a lot of people will not respond well to it or be put off by it. So I was actually a little bit surprised to see that in this, and I mean pleasantly surprised. I also I feel like this was an extremely well-written novel, but not an overly unique novel, if that makes sense. I do feel like I have seen this story before or watched this in a movie or something of that nature, but it was very well written. I was engaged. I wanted to know what was going on. Shay is not a particularly likable main character, but I do feel that that is intentional. She will use people. She's pretty much trying to save her friend for her own agenda, and she's not fun to read, like be in the mind of, but again, I do feel like that was intentional. I would highly recommend. This book is not for everyone. If you don't like a dark book, you don't like to hear about women's abuse, you are triggered by gaslighting or anything of that nature, then I would recommend that you avoid this one, or at the very least check trigger warnings. I feel like they're pretty obvious, but check them out anyway, and just be aware that gaslighting and horrible treatment of women is just, that is the theme of this book. Now that leads me into a couple of things that did not work overly well for me. One was I really, I won't say enjoyed, because this is not a book that you're supposed to enjoy, but I liked this book quite a bit, but there was just one piece, and I don't really know what that piece was, missing for me to turn it into a 5-star read. It just felt a little bit hollow, and I think the reason for that is partly in the way it was told. So this is a huge chunk of this is told in transcripts from a podcast, which normally I would love, but unfortunately the way that the podcast element was done read more like a monologue than it did a podcast transcript. And so I think because of that, I was feeling like I was being told something or talked at rather than experiencing it with Shay, and therefore it did not have as big of an impact. We did have this big villain monologue kind of thing at the end, which I did not particularly like. I felt like, again, I was being told at something rather than experiencing it with our characters. So I think that's why it's probably going to get a 4-star for me. I have not run it through CallPile yet, so that is to be determined. And if between now and the next time I come back, I've changed that rating, I will let you know. But overall, very good read. If you're looking for something that is extremely dark and is more of a conversation about the way that women are treated and how someone could end up in this situation, because I think that's what I found the most fascinating about this book, is it really did a good job exploring how someone would end up in this situation, because it's easy from the outside looking in to go, I would never do that. I would never catch myself in that type of spot. I would never allow myself to be in that type of situation. But the way that things can be warped in your mind, it's a unique style of brainwashing, and I do feel like she did a good job explaining that and explaining how far someone was willing to go because of that and how hard it is to get yourself away from it. So I do think that she did a good job with that. I just wish we had been able to experience it with our character a bit more rather than being told things. Overall, again, I do recommend this for people that are looking for a bit of a character study, a bit more of a conversational type thriller. This is not going to be one of those like no exit that keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's not overly mysterious. I mean, we do have a mystery plot at the core of it, but it's not. It's not a big mystery. There's not a ton of things you're trying to puzzle out, even though you are. That's not the focus of this book. So just expectations going in on what this is and what it's trying to deliver, I do think are important. But yeah, I think that this first book, we started off with a bang. We started off with a success with a 4-star read. It only took me a little less than 2 days to read this one, so super quick, and I'm excited to move on to the next book. I think I am going to move on to The Girl Before. It's a 12-hour audiobook, so it's not that long, and I do feel like we need to hit the backlist book. I said I wasn't going to do Please Join Us unless I knew I had time, so let's start with The Girl Before. And once I have a better understanding of what that book is about, I'll come back and let you guys know. I will do my very best not to come back at the very end of the book this time and kind of give you my thoughts in between as I'm going along. But really, I don't think that my thoughts drastically changed on The Last Housewife between halfway and the end. I think that it changed at the 25% mark to the 50% mark because I did start to see the story really wind down, and that's where I wasn't getting bored, but I was less engaged, if that makes sense. But then from the 50% mark or 60% mark to the end, it went back to the way it was at the beginning to 25%. So not a whole lot changed as far as feelings in that in between. So you didn't miss much. But anyway, all of that rambling to be said, I will do my best to update you guys at more of the 30-50% mark of The Girl Before. And I think for the rest of the night, I am going to be working on my cozy blanket that I'm making and watching Stranger Things. So I'm going to go do that, and I'll check back in with you guys in a bit. Okay, so I am about 30% into The Girl Before by Rena Olson, and I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this right now. As of this moment, it's okay. I'm mostly intrigued. There are little bits that keep happening that make me want to know what's going on, but I'm also a little bit bored. So this particular story is taking place in now and then timelines, not really proper chapters. So we're getting a couple of pages of before, when she was a part of this, what seems to be human trafficking type cult. And then we're flipping forward to the now, which is when she has been kidnapped or taken out of this situation, and seemingly some kind of police, governmental something is trying to piece together this case, and they want her to testify against her husband, Glenn. And of course, she is having none of that. She does not believe that there was anything bad going on. She just knows that she's been taken away from her husband and her daughters. So the concept in and of itself is intriguing, but we are flipping back and forth so quickly between the now and the then that it's very difficult to get properly invested, because about the time you're like, ooh, I want to know more, you switch to a completely different timeline. It's probably like 2 or 3 page chunks, which moves the story forward quickly because you want to continue reading to get back to that part. But at the same time, it is a little disorienting, especially when the then parts are flipping back and forth between different timelines, it seems, as well, and it's not telling you at what year you're in. So we only get now and then. If you're in the then and she's 12, it sounds the exact same and is titled the exact same as to if she was 18, 20 years old. And it's very hard to get your bearings about how old she is and at what point different things are taking place, if something happened before something or happened after something else. I'm not loving the way that it's told right now. I don't feel like it's lending itself to I don't even want to say cohesive story, because sometimes all over the place stories work. But in this particular scenario, it's disorienting to the point where I'm just not enjoying myself, because I don't feel like I can follow, not because I'm properly confused. There are some books that want you to stay confused and want you to stay in the dark, and that part is fine, but you have to tell the story in a way that can be followed, and I feel like it's a writing structural problem, the way that it's told, and me not being able to follow it. So that is kind of irritating me, and if I don't start to get more intrigued, I'm considering DNFing this book, simply because there's not really a plot at this point. Like, we're learning about Clara and the aftermath and her really being kind of brainwashed by this situation and what she believes, but we don't have a goal. Like, I don't know what this book is trying to achieve. I have no clue. I just know that we're learning about Clara then and now, and I don't know what the point is, and I'm 30% in. I should know what the point is by now, so that's kind of one of those where if I don't start to learn the point pretty soon, I'm not sure that the ins and outs of Clara herself, because she's kind of a cookie cutter doll, and I think that's intentional because of everything that she's gone through, but I'm just not engaged at this moment. I also am a little bit annoyed / confused about this cult aspect in general, and I will put up a little spoiler tag here because I'm not sure if this is something people would consider spoilers, but just in case it is kind of minor spoilers about how the cult works. So just so you know, until this goes away, spoiler tag. we are in a what seems to be human trafficking sex cult, and we have Mama May and Papa G. And Papa G runs with an iron fist. We've seen him slap people around. We've seen Mama have rules and be very, very strict. At one point, one of the girls is trying to sneak out to do something. I don't even remember what it was at this point. And Clara is covering for her. And then when they find out that she did indeed sneak out, she is properly punished in whatever way that means. But then we have another scene where Clara is trying to get this guy, I don't know whether he was a client or exactly what he was, but trying to get this guy away from one of her younger sisters because he was drunk and trying to rape her. And she gets him away by offering basically herself to try to save her younger sister. Well, of course, he does do the act. And she gets so like bent out of shape about it, obviously so, that she somehow acquires a gun. I don't really know where she got that from. Goes back into the room and shoots him in the balls. Now, more power to her. But at the same time, there were no repercussions for that, at least not that I've read so far. Her husband found out about it and he just disposed of the guy because she didn't kill him. And nothing else has been said. And I'm like, okay, but in a cult that is that strict and has that many like rules and places for women, a woman stepping out of their like bubble and their perceived role like that would normally spark so much hatred, and just because it's so strict, like I would have expected there to be punishment for her for doing what she did to stand up for herself, and there wasn't. And again, that wouldn't have bothered me if we didn't already have this like set of strict rules already in play prior to that event. So anyway, it is bugging me a little bit. I do feel like we're kind of all over the place and we can't really settle on a timeline or rules or the way that this cult is structured. And I don't know. I've been rambling for a while now, but we'll see. I'm going to try to at least make it to the 50% mark before I give up on this book to see if everything does start to come together, and it just needed a little bit of time to do the confusing thing before it did start to wrap up and make a point. But unless something drastically changes, the next update you see from me is going to be me DNFing the book. I also told you guys that I would check back in and let you know what my final call pile rating was of The Last Housewife, and I think it's going to be somewhere between a 3.5 and a low 4. Call pile did rate it as a 3.5. There were some things about Shay and her interactions with some of the people that she interacted with to try to find Laurel that I was like, no way you get out of that unscathed, baby doll. There's just no way. So I did enjoy it. I would recommend it to people, but it's not a perfect book, and there were some things that I didn't just love about it. So I think 3.5, low 4 stars, kind of where my happy spot is on that one. And I am probably about to go walk the dog. It is a beautiful outside, so we're going to go get a little bit of a walk in. He doesn't know that yet, but he will be very excited when I tell him. And then I'm going to listen to the book while I walk, and then I'm going to be doing sprints with Kaylee tonight. So hopefully I can get some really good reading time in, and I'll check back with you guys once a decision's made. Okay, I'm back. I have officially finished The Girl Before by Rena Olson, and I have some seriously mixed feelings on this one. Okay, so the good. I know I said that the writing style was making things really kind of confusing and just unlinear, out of touch, and it does, but it also moves the plot forward, or what semblance there is of a plot forward. So it does make it a little bit more intriguing because you're just waiting to see exactly what's going on and what's going to happen next. I do feel like this book does a good job of kind of giving you what this type of situation might be like. And I do want to just kind of preface and say this is a cult vlog, and where I got this recommendation was a cult book. However, it is not. It is Stockholm Syndrome and human trafficking. So just be aware of that going in, because it does go into some pretty detailed descriptions of what her life was like and kind of the different things that went on while she was there. So that part was hard hitting, and it was, I think, done well enough. But as a general rule, I just was not overly engaged in this book, and I did have a lot of logic problems in it. The example that I mentioned before, as well as I just we never saw why Clara was so in love with Glenn. I understand what the author was trying to show, that kind of Stockholm, I love him so much, and that part I didn't mind at all. I just don't understand exactly how we got to that point, because their relationship was never allowed, it was never encouraged, it was never told it was a good thing, and so there was no reason for her to break the rules and risk punishment and fall that much in love with him from what we saw on page. So I didn't really buy that. Reading from Clara's perspective and the way that this book was told did not make me, I don't want to say sympathize with her, because this is a very hard read, and it is heartbreaking to think that there are women that would go through something like this. But the way that it was told kept me from truly feeling what Clara felt. And I think that that was a big reason why this one just didn't work for me, because there's no plot here. You know from the beginning what's going on. You know from the beginning kind of what our end game and what our goal is going to be. And so it's much more just following her around, living this with her, experiencing this through her. But I never really felt like I was living it with her or experiencing it through her. I felt like I was being kind of, again, talked at. And so I just never got that invested. There was a scene at the very, very end of the book that I think would have been significantly better served at the beginning. I think that would have really helped us kind of set the tone and set the mood as to what was going on. And I wish that it had been told the past a little bit more chronologically. I think that that might have allowed me to see why she fell in love with Glenn and why she was the way that she was a little bit better. I also thought kind of the switch of her was a little too quick and not enough for me. This one is not really that long, but it's not particularly short either. So I don't know that I would have say add pages, but I don't know. I just never really felt like I got enough to be fully engaged in the story. I can see how this would work for a lot of people if you are looking for a very slow about a character's life and you just want to know kind of the ins and outs of how this author perceived the situation would work, then I think that this one could work for you. But if you're looking for a thriller or horror about cults, I think you would be disappointed, especially since this is not about cults, but it's most certainly not a thriller. So I think I'm going to give this one a 2.5, maybe 3 star, just depending on kind of what call pile comes out as, because I do think that there were elements of this that were well done, and I do think that the topic broached was difficult, and I can see where it would work for people, but there were just many things that did not quite work for me, and that's why I said I have really mixed feelings on it. So anyway, this one is done. Not a cult book. I'm sorry. I thought it was, and I kept trying to justify how it would be, and I was a little bit confused in the beginning because I was like, okay, how is this a cult book? Well, it's got to be, but it really isn't. So just kind of know that if you're looking for a cult book going in. I thought my bookmark was in here, but apparently not. Yeah, so that is The Girl Before. Not sad that I read it, but not something that I would just go out and just super recommend to people. And then I have also started Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. I'm not far into this at all. We're talking like, I don't know, 10, 15 pages just to kind of get a feel of it. And this one's gonna be weird too. This is the horror, and it is about 3 mercenaries known as the Englishmen, and they are hired by Ellen for a simple task, checking on her nephew, who may be taken against his will, to New Mexico backwoods called Little Haven, where a clandestine religious cult holds sway. But after they arrive, things begin to turn ominous. There are stirrings in the woods and over the rooftops. Paranoia and distrust soon grip the settlement. Escape routes are gradually cut off as events spiral toward madness. So it sounds interesting. We obviously have a cult because it's in the description of the book that there is a cult here. And I'm excited for this to be the horror that I read for this vlog and my first Nick Cutter book. So I think just reading it, I'm wondering if there's going to be a touch of paranormal. I'm not really sure. And I'm excited to find out more. I wasn't sure about the writing style when I very first started it, but I think that was just kind of the intro, setting the scene, setting the atmosphere, and then it did get a lot more quote unquote normal type style once we got into the second little chapter. So I'm excited. I'm ready to read some more of this one. And yeah, I think that is everything for now. I don't really think I have a whole lot else to update you guys on. It is my mom's birthday today. But we're not going to do anything tonight. We're going to do something on either Saturday or Sunday. Saturday, I do have my Patreon Hocus Pocus, a double feature. So I'm going to see if she's willing to do something on Saturday. I don't know where we're going to go. We always just kind of do a big like dinner for birthdays. We don't really do presents or anything like that. So that'll be fun. And if it is on Saturday when I'm filming this vlog, I will show you guys all the delicious food. If it's not, it'll be in the next vlog. And yeah, I've talked long enough. I'm gonna shut up now. Catch you later. So I'm at the halfway mark, so it is time to talk about how I'm feeling about Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. This one, I had higher hopes for than what it's turning out to be. So in the very beginning, it does have a very strange prose, and that is continuing. It's not as strange as it was, but it's still a little bit odd, and I'm not sure that I love it, but it's a very horror-esque type prose, so it's not bad. It's just not something I'm sure I'm going to enjoy. I did know that Nick Cutter did have a tendency to do grotesque for the sake of being grotesque, and that is his kind of horror, is imagery of twisted things and grotesque situations and creatures and things like that. So I did kind of know that going into this, but at the same time, I had heard that this one was very different than The Deep and The Troop. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe that will be not the case in this one. And at first I was like, okay, all of the grotesque is making sense, and it is crude, but crude in a way that I can see it needing to be. But unfortunately, as we've gone along, and now that we're at Little Heaven, things are happening that are just very grotesque. And it's not bad, and it's not a negative thing. It's just, I'm not sure if it's my kind of horror. I don't mind grotesque. I don't mind crude. Nothing like that bothers me. And I actually like for things to be, if you're going to do a creature, make it weird, make it out there, make it horrific, but not a whole lot is happening. And it's just all descriptions of this gross stuff. And so if we had more going on, I think it would be completely fine. But this book is moving incredibly slow for me. There's just not a whole lot going on, despite them having gotten to Little Heaven and learning a little bit more about that. And the cult part is very interesting. I just don't feel like the plot's moving very much. I feel like we've done a lot of nothing in the first 150, 200 pages. So I don't know. It's okay. It does remind me a lot of Stephen King. Now, take with a grain of salt, because I've only read a couple of Stephen King, so I'm by no means an expert on him, but the writing style and kind of this very descriptive telling you about everything situation is reminiscent to me of King. So if you are a King fan, maybe try this, but again, take it with a grain of salt, because I've not read a lot of King, so I may be way, way, way off base. Anyway, gonna keep reading it. I'm not nearly as far into this as I wanted to be. I really wanted to get done with this today and be able to do Please Join Us tomorrow, but I'm running behind, and I'm probably going to end up having to finish this tomorrow, so I'm not sure Please Join Us is going to get read. At this point, I'm not entirely sure I'm even going to get this whole thing read. So we're going to do our best. We're going to try, and hopefully the reading bug is going to bite me in the butt so that I can get this moving. We did have a really, really good dinner with my mom. We went to German, which is her favoritist of all time. I did have it last week. You guys have seen a montage of that, but she wanted to go back, so back we went. It was very good. We had a great time. And yeah, I think that's everything for now. Tomorrow night is my Hocus Pocus watch along with my Patreon, so I am going to be getting me some wine and some popcorn, and we're going to be doing that tomorrow. But if I get up to anything interesting, I'll let you guys know. But for now, my butt has to get in gear with this thing because I'm not gripped and I don't feel like reading, but I have to. Okay, so the day is sad, but the day has come. And I am going to be DNFing Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. This is not a bad book, but I don't think it's the book for me. I just realized last night as I was listening, I have like 40% left. I'm over 60% of the way through this book. And I just realized while I was listening that I just did not care. This book is a lot of descriptions of gross and grotesque things, and that doesn't bother me, that's fine. But when the plot or the book has nothing else going for it other than those descriptions trying to gross you out and horrify you, I got bored. I think if this book had been more like 150 to 200 pages and that is really what it was all about, was just to try to gross people out, I don't think it would have bothered me. I think I would have been entertained. But considering this thing is over 400 pages with teeny tiny print, we talked for 150 pages before we even really got into any of the action. By the time things started to happen, I didn't care. I didn't care what happened to the characters. I didn't care about these creatures. Just nothing was really pulling me in. So sadly, I am going to DNF this one for now. I might try it again and just see if it was a me thing or an audio thing later, but I did enjoy the narrator, so I don't think it was an audio thing. But I am going to keep it and possibly try it again, but for now, it's just not working for me. And we're coming down to the wire on this vlog, so rather than push through that and end up giving it a not good rating and only bringing you guys 3 books for this vlog, I decided I would DNF it and go ahead and start Please Join Us by Catherine McKenzie. This one is really short, so I think I'll be able to get it all done before this has to go live. This one is about a woman that is kind of struggling in her career, and she meets a group of women that promise her all of these things. She does start to see riches from joining this group, but then one day she gets a call that she needs to go help cover up one of the other members' murders, and she realized that her husband might have been right and she might have joined a cult. So I'm interested in this one. It does seem very different than the other ones that I've read for this vlog, so I'm hoping that I really enjoy it. And yeah, so today is Saturday. I am coming down to the wire on this vlog. I don't know if we're really going to do a whole lot today. I do have the Hocus Pocus watch along tonight, so I'll show you guys a few clips from that. But other than that, today is going to be a relatively chill day. I have a wedding to go to in a couple of weeks, and your girl hadn't found a dress yet, and apparently it's like a semi-formal kind of wedding, so it's not like I can wear just the little black short number that's in my closet. So I gotta go do that today. But other than that, pretty chill Saturday, roll tide, and yeah, once I've started Please Join Us, I'll check back in. Hopefully that one is a win because we started relatively strong with The Last Housewife being like a 3.5, and then the Rena Olsen just didn't work for me. The Nick Cutter didn't work for me. So I need another win in this vlog. And I'm really hoping that Please Join Us is it. So yeah, that's all for now. I'm going to go. Super quick, very precariously placed update for you guys. This has nothing to do with reading. I just wanted to let you know that I finally got my Novel Wicks candles in the mail. I ordered them a while ago and they just came in. These are 2 new scents that I'm really excited. I've never had these before, so first impression sniff test. The first one that we have is Happy Fall, y'all, and it's vanilla, rose, and cedar wood. Okay. Oh. It's a little bit more florally than I would usually prefer, but that's the vanilla. Well, and the rose. I like that one. That one's going to be good. And then the other one that I got is Ghost Stories, and it is pomegranate and cider. That one's interesting. I think I like it, but it does have a little bit of a more perfumey smell than I was expecting. This one's gonna make a really good, like, a bath time candle. And they do have glitter. They are wood wick. Ugh, So pretty, so great. So I am very excited. I might burn this one here in just a little bit. I've got the football game on, so we might toss this on. I've actually had Autumn from Bath & Body Works lit for the last couple of hours, so I need to let that permeate the air and go away before I light a different scent. But very happy with these. Love her shop. The woodwick is great quality, and she does have a lot of different ones that are book inspired, so I would definitely recommend. I'll leave her shop linked down below. I have finished Please Join Us, but before I get into the review of the book, I did want to review Hocus Pocus 2 with you guys. So I did a watch along of the first and the second back to back with my Patreons, and it was so much fun. We had a great time kind of talking it out with each other and just watching the movie and just really having somebody to discuss everything with. I ended up really enjoying the second one even more than I thought I would. I figured it was going to be just a nostalgia type thing that would be fun to watch, but that I would never really want to rewatch, but I think they did a good job with it. There were a few things that were a bit more over the top than I really wanted them to be, and I did miss the charm of Danny, Max, and the gang, but overall it was great to see the sisters again. The ending was a little bit bittersweet, and I don't particularly like the direction that we went, but I see why they did it that way. So overall, I had a good time, don't regret watching it, and I would probably watch it again next year. So just to talk about Please Join Us, I was supposed to touch in with you guys once I was halfway through, but this is a really quick read, and so I ended up just kind of listening to it straight through, and I have finished it. And this one is about Nicole, who gets a email to join this empowerment group of women to help better her career after she's really kind of been struggling in her career. And so she agrees to join and hopes to reap all of these rewards, but once she gets there, she realizes there's a little bit more going on than she initially thought there was. I don't feel like this was a cult book. I mean, it said over and over again that it is like a cult, but it just didn't feel that way to me. There's nothing inherently wrong with this book. It's just very basic. It's very middle of the road thriller. It doesn't do anything different. It kept me engaged enough not to DNF it, but it just wasn't my favorite. Nicole as a main character was very bland and honestly really aggravating, and the twist at the end was just extremely implausible to me. I don't feel like it would ever be anything that could actually happen, no matter how much money and power you had or would want to do. So I don't know, it was okay. If it's already been on your radar and something that you think you might want to read, then I do recommend maybe giving it a try. But if it's something that you're just hearing about in this video, I don't know that I would just go out and recommend you purchase it. But it was a good enough read, and it's going to be like a low 3-star, middle of the road kind of situation. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, don't really have any strong feelings toward it at all. So that is that. So I think that's going to wrap up all of the books that I read in this video. I wish it had been a bigger hit than it was, and I wish that more of the books had been cult books than they were. But I ended up enjoying, for the most part, everything that I read. Just to wrap up really quick, I did read The Last Housewife, which I gave a 3.5 star. That one was probably my favorite out of all of these reads, and by far the most cult-like of all of the reads. And then we had the book by Rena Olson, which was not really a cult book and took a completely different side of things than Last Housewife did. It was okay, but there were parts with the way it was told and just kind of the splicing nature of it that I did not love. And then I ended up DNFing Little Heaven. It just was not the book for me. It wasn't moving fast enough for all of just the graphic gore descriptions. It really felt like it was all it had going for it, and that's just not my kind of horror. And then Please Join Us, which again, I didn't really feel like was a cult book, but I guess it kind of was. I don't know, the author kept describing it that way. It just never felt that way to me. That was a very middle of the road, and it's going to be like a high to low 3-star read. So overall, not terrible, not great, but that's the nature of a theme vlog. You never know what you're gonna get. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please keep an eye out for the next couple of weeks vlogs. I've got some really fun stuff planned. We're gonna go to a corn maze, which we did not get to do in this video. Maybe have a date night, who knows, but got some really fun things coming up. If you guys want to hang out with me a little bit more, you can check out links to my Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads down in the description box. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!